help us to like, comment and subscribe to the channel for more of this. At 32, Rachel Turner had spent the last 5 years quietly paying her parents' mortgage. It wasn't something she boasted about, she did it because she loved them. But all of that changed the day her mother shouted, "You're ungrateful. Get out and never come back." And Rachel did exactly that. Her job as a financial consultant had given her the stability to support both her family and herself. She rented a modern apartment in downtown Boston and still managed to send money to cover her parents' mortgage in Riverside, a quiet suburb. She didn't expect thanks, but she never thought the people she'd sacrificed for would turn on her. That Sunday afternoon started like any other, grocery bags in hand, a polite smile on her face, but ended with a sentence that changed everything. Rachel had grown up in a small 3-bedroom house with her parents, Linda and George Turner, and her younger brother Alex. Her mother worked as a receptionist at the local dentist's office, while her father bounced from one sales job to another. Money was always tight, and Rachel learned early that if she wanted anything extra, she'd have to earn it herself. She poured herself into her studies, balancing school with part-time jobs. While her friends went to movies or hung out at the mall, Rachel was tutoring younger students, the cash she earned often going toward groceries or utility bills. Her determination paid off when she secured a full scholarship to Boston University's School of Business. University changed Rachel's life. Surrounded by driven, like-minded students, she found her people, those who shared her ambition and hunger for success. She graduated top of her class and landed a role at a respected firm, Ashcroft Financial. Just as her career was beginning, disaster struck at home. Her father lost yet another job, and at 54, with no technical skills and an outdated resume, he couldn't find a new one. Her mother's income alone couldn't cover their bills. Rachel remembered the day she got the call, her mother crying, telling her the bank was preparing to foreclose. Without a second thought, Rachel emptied her savings and covered the missing payments. But she knew it was only a temporary fix. After careful research, Rachel approached the bank with a proposal. She would make the mortgage payments directly each month, while her parents' names stayed on the loan. The bank agreed after reviewing her credit and income. Her parents believed they'd been enrolled in a special assistance program. Rachel never corrected them. Her intention wasn't to make them feel ashamed. She just wanted them to keep their home. Over the next few years, her career flourished. By 27, she had a senior title, a corner office, and a sleek apartment in Back Bay. Yet every Sunday she returned to her childhood home, slept in her old room and acted like everything was fine. Despite everything Rachel did, the emotional atmosphere at home remained the same. Her mother, Linda, often filled conversations with complaints about work, the neighbors, even Rachel's career. Her father, George, mostly stayed silent, eyes glued to the TV. Her brother Alex had escaped years ago, moving across the country and rarely calling. Rachel was the only one still actively involved. "You don't know what real life is," her mother would say, dismissing Rachel's advice on budgeting or repairs. Rachel knew exactly how much debt they were in and how little they had for retirement. But whenever she tried to help, her mother took offense. Still, Rachel kept going, week after week, payment after payment, hoping one day they'd understand. For 5 years, Rachel lived a double life, thriving in her career during the week and playing the dutiful daughter on weekends. She sacrificed without complaint. When her friends planned vacations or bought homes, she smiled and nodded, keeping quiet about why she couldn't do the same. Her mother's constant jabs about her fancy job and city lifestyle cut deeper than anyone realized. Her father never stepped in, choosing peace over truth. But Rachel held on. Family was family, and she believed standing by them was the right thing to do. She ignored the resentment building inside her, until one Sunday changed everything. It was a warm afternoon when Rachel pulled into the driveway of her parents' home, arms full of groceries. She rang the doorbell, greeted as always by her mother's sharp voice. "Look who finally showed up. Our big city girl." Rachel placed the bags on the counter and kissed her mother's cheek. "It's 4 o'clock, just like I said." Linda huffed, inspecting the bags like a food critic. "Some of us have been up since dawn," she muttered. Rachel swallowed the comeback on her tongue. About the presentation she'd stayed up all night finishing, about the clients that depended on her. But none of that mattered here. In this house, her accomplishments didn't count. Her father, as usual, barely glanced up from the TV. "Hey kiddo, he mumbled, eyes glued to a baseball game. Rachel nodded at him, unsurprised. But what caught her off guard was the presence of her Aunt Monica, her mom's younger sister, sitting at the dining table with a glass of iced tea. "Rachel, you look more beautiful every time I see you," Aunt Monica exclaimed, rising to give her a warm hug. "Your mom tells me you're a big-time consultant now. They must be so proud." Rachel smiled politely, catching the flicker of annoyance on her mother's face. Aunt Monica, successful and outspoken, had always been a sore spot for Linda. As they prepared dinner together, Monica shared stories from her recent trip to Spain, her daughter's college graduation, and a condo she'd just purchased. Rachel listened with genuine interest, but she could feel her mother's energy shifting. Quieter, sharper, her movements stiff and irritated. By the time they all sat down at the table, the tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. Halfway through the meal, Monica innocently asked, "Linda, did you ever work things out with the mortgage? I remember you were worried about foreclosure a few years ago." Rachel froze, fork midair. Linda's smile vanished. "We had some trouble when George lost his job, but the bank helped us. We're fine now." Monica tilted her head, a crease forming between her brows. "Oh, I must have misunderstood. Rachel told me she helped you with that." The silence that followed was crushing. Rachel's heart pounded. Her mother's eyes narrowed like knives. "Rachel did what?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. Monica hesitated, realizing too late the storm she'd unleashed. "I may be misremembering," she said quickly. "It was just a passing comment." But Linda turned to Rachel, her voice rising. "I want to hear from you. What exactly have you been saying behind our backs?" Rachel swallowed hard. "I haven't been saying anything behind your backs. I just what?" Linda snapped. "Been interfering in our business? Telling people we can't manage our own lives." George finally looked up from his plate, his expression tense. "Linda, maybe we should—" "No, George. I want to hear this," she snapped, still staring at Rachel. "Go on. What exactly have you been doing?" Rachel took a shaky breath. She had kept this secret for 5 years to protect them. But maybe it was time for the truth. "When Dad lost his job, you were 3 months behind on the mortgage. The bank had started foreclosure proceedings. I paid the debt. Then I made an arrangement with the bank to handle the payments myself. Every month for 5 years, I've been paying it directly." The color drained from Linda's face. "You did what?" she whispered. Rachel nodded, her voice soft but steady. "I just wanted to help. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd never accept it if it came from me directly." Linda's face turned from pale to flushed in an instant. "So you went behind our backs? Made us look like charity cases?" "No one knows except the bank, me, and apparently Aunt Monica," Rachel replied, glancing at her aunt, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. "It wasn't about making you look bad. It was about keeping the house." Linda pushed her chair back, standing with shaking hands. "Is that why you're always making suggestions about fixing things? Because you think this is your house now?" "Linda," George said firmly, "Rachel was just trying to help." "This isn't help," Linda shot back. "This is control. She thinks she's better than us because she lives downtown and wears expensive clothes. This isn't generosity. It's superiority." "That's not true," Rachel said, standing now, her voice cracking under pressure. "I never thought I was better than you. I just wanted to make sure you didn't lose your home." "Spare me," Linda scoffed. "You probably tell your friends all about your poor, incompetent parents who can't manage money. Must make you feel like some kind of saint." Tears welled in Rachel's eyes. "I never told anyone but Monica. And that was out of concern, not pride." Linda's voice rose higher. "You lied to us for 5 years. You played hero while humiliating us behind our backs. Who do you think you are?" "I'm your daughter," Rachel replied, her voice calm but full of pain. "The one who's been keeping a roof over your head while you tear me down every chance you get." Linda's face contorted in rage. She jabbed a finger across the table. "You're ungrateful. Get out. And don't come back." Silence followed. Even the noise from the television faded as if the house itself was holding its breath. Rachel stood frozen. She had heard cruel words before, but never this. George opened his mouth to speak, but Linda wasn't finished. "We supported you your whole life. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us. By going behind our backs. By making us feel like failures." I never meant to make you feel that way, Rachel said quietly. But let's be honest, you needed help. And I gave it. Well, we don't need it anymore, Linda snapped. We don't need you. George murmured, Carol, that's enough. But Rachel was already walking away. Rachel climbed the stairs to her childhood bedroom, her breath tight in her chest. Her hands shook as she grabbed an overnight bag and began packing the few clothes and toiletries she kept there. She looked around at the remnants of her past, trophies, certificates, her college degree, all the things she once believed would make her family proud. Now they just looked like museum pieces from a life she no longer recognized. Downstairs, the arguing continued. Linda yelling, George defending weakly, Monica trying to mediate. Rachel tuned it all out. The line had been crossed. There was no going back. When she came downstairs with her bag, the room fell silent. I'm leaving, she said, eyes on her mother. You told me to go. So I'm going. Linda crossed her arms. If you walk out that door, don't expect things to go back to normal. I don't, Rachel replied, voice steady. Goodbye, Mom. Rachel walked out the front door, not looking back. The click of it closing behind her felt louder than it should have, final in a way that pierced her chest. She got into her car, gripping the steering wheel with trembling hands as tears streamed silently down her cheeks. That house, her house financially, was no longer hers in any way that mattered. Driving back to her downtown apartment, she barely noticed the roads or traffic lights. Her mother's voice echoed in her head on repeat. You're ungrateful. Get out. The next thing Rachel knew, she was parking in her building's garage. Inside her apartment, she dropped her bag by the door and walked straight to her office. She opened her laptop, pulled up the recurring mortgage payment she'd been making for 5 years, and hovered over the cancel button. Her heart pounded. Then click. It was done. The confirmation message glowed on her screen. Recurring payment canceled. Just like that, $1,875 a month, over $110,000 in total, was no longer going to a home she had been ejected from. The sense of relief she thought would follow never came. Instead, a strange emptiness settled inside her chest. She closed her laptop and quietly removed herself from the family group chat. Then she unfriended both of her parents on social media. That night, she turned off her phone and crawled into bed fully clothed. Sleep was restless and brief, but one thought grounded her. For the first time in her adult life, she was no longer tied to her parents' financial chaos. Whatever happened now was on them. It was terrifying, but also strangely freeing. The following week passed in a blur. At work, Rachel buried herself in client cases and financial reports, receiving praise from colleagues who assumed she was simply focused, not unraveling. At home, she sat in silence most nights, replaying the dinner again and again in her head. Did she do the right thing? Was it cruel to walk away? Her phone remained off for 3 days. When she finally powered it back on, she found 0 missed calls or messages from her parents. That silence hit harder than she expected. A part of her, despite everything, had hoped they'd reach out, apologize, say something. Anything. But there was nothing. Only the quiet buzz of unanswered pain. On the 4th day, Rachel's best friend, Chloe, showed up unannounced with Thai food and 2 bottles of wine. You look terrible, Chloe said the moment Rachel opened the door. Nice to see you too, Rachel muttered, stepping aside. Chloe had been the only person Rachel ever confided in about the mortgage payments. For years she had warned Rachel that the arrangement was unhealthy. So, Chloe said as she unpacked spring rolls, you finally did it. You cut the cord. You stood up to Queen Linda. Don't call her that, Rachel said softly, still feeling the weight of guilt. Chloe sighed. She kicked you out of the house you were paying for and hasn't called since. And you're still defending her. She's still my mother. And that's exactly the problem. Chloe handed Rachel a glass of wine and looked her in the eyes. You're not their financial planner. You're their daughter. But they never treated you like one. I know, Rachel said, her voice thin. But part of me still wonders if I should have tried harder to explain. No, Chloe said firmly. You tried for 5 years. You gave up savings, relationships, even your weekends. And what did you get in return? A plate of food and an insult. Rachel didn't answer. But that night after Chloe left, she did something she'd been avoiding. She called her brother Alex. It's about time, Alex said as soon as he picked up. I've been waiting for this call for years. They spoke for over an hour, longer than any conversation they'd had in the last decade. And for the first time in years, Rachel didn't feel so alone. Rachel and Alex talked about everything. Growing up under Linda's constant control, George's silence, the unspoken expectations placed on Rachel. "You chose to stay and try to fix it," Alex said gently. "I chose to leave. But neither of us is wrong. We just survived in different ways." Before hanging up, Alex offered something unexpected. "You should come visit me in Seattle. Get some distance. Breathe." Rachel smiled. "Maybe I will." She felt lighter than she had in weeks. Her brother understood her pain in a way no one else could. The conversation gave her something she'd been lacking: clarity. 2 weeks passed. Rachel checked her bank account on the first of the month. No transfer was made, of course. She braced herself. By the third week the text started, vague at first. George texted, "How's work? Mom made pot roast." Then more direct. "Can you help with online banking?" Rachel ignored them. On day 19 the tone shifted. "Bank says there's a problem with the mortgage. Can you check?" Then, "Please respond." So she said nothing. She had carried their burden for 5 years. It was their turn to feel the weight. Day 20 brought the message she dreaded, this time from Linda. "The bank says we're behind. Fix this." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a demand. Rachel stared at the text. The nerve of it. The audacity. Her hands trembled with frustration. By day 25, George sent another message. "They're starting foreclosure. We need to talk." That evening her building's doorman called. "Miss Turner, there's a George Turner here to see you." Rachel hesitated. He had never visited her apartment. Not once in 5 years. "I'll come down," she said, not ready to let him into her personal space just yet. In the lobby George looked older. More tired than she remembered. "Rachel," he said softly. "Thank God. You haven't been answering." She nodded but didn't smile. "Why are you here?" He motioned to a nearby seating area. They sat on opposite couches, a coffee table between them. "Why did you stop paying the mortgage?" he asked. For once the question was direct. Rachel met his gaze. "Why do you think?" George shifted uncomfortably. "Because your mother overreacted?" "Because she told me to get out and never come back," Rachel said plainly. "And because I was tired of giving everything while being treated like nothing." "She didn't mean it," George muttered. "Yes, she did," Rachel replied. "And not once has she apologized. Not once has she thanked me. I gave you 5 years of my life. I paid over $100,000. I lost time, peace, and sleep, and I was still treated like a problem instead of a blessing." George looked down at his hands. "You're right," he whispered. "We relied on you too much. We never should have." Rachel blinked. He had never said that before. "I'm sorry," he added. "As your father, I should have protected you." Her chest tightened. After all this time he finally saw her. "Thank you for saying that," Rachel said softly. "But this isn't just about you. Mom needs to own her part too." George nodded. "Would you be willing to meet? All 3 of us. Talk honestly." Rachel paused. "Only if there are boundaries. She attacks me, I walk. And I'm not promising anything about the mortgage. This is about respect, not money." "Fair enough," George said. They agreed to meet that Sunday, exactly 4 weeks after everything fell apart. After he left, Rachel called her therapist for an emergency session. "Remember," Dr. Ellis said, "you're not responsible for their emotions. Only your own." On Sunday Rachel drove to the house, but this time she rang the doorbell instead of using her key. George opened the door with a nervous smile. "Thanks for coming." Rachel stepped inside. Linda sat stiffly on the couch, her arms crossed. Rachel sat across from them. "The bank called again," Linda began. "They're moving forward with foreclosure." Rachel didn't flinch. "Is that all you have to say?" she asked calmly. Silence. Then Linda cleared her throat. "I may have overreacted. You told me to leave," Rachel said. "You insulted me for helping you." George placed a hand on Linda's arm. Linda sighed. "I did overreact. I was embarrassed, humiliated. Especially in front of Monica." "So, your pride was more important than 5 years of support?" Rachel asked. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," George interjected. We let our pride come before gratitude. Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Here, she said, sliding it across the coffee table. This is every mortgage payment I've made. Over $112,000. Never once did I ask for anything in return. George looked through the pages with wide eyes. Linda stared at the cover, her expression unreadable. I didn't know it was that much, George whispered. You never asked, Rachel replied. Linda's voice was faint. I don't know what to say. Try thank you, Rachel suggested. Linda's eyes finally met hers. Thank you, and I'm sorry. For what I said. For how I acted. Rachel nodded slowly. That matters. Linda took a breath. I was jealous. Watching you succeed made me feel like a failure. Felt like charity, and that made me angry. I didn't know how to say thank you without feeling small. Rachel looked at her mother. Truly looked at her. Then maybe now's the time to start learning. George leaned forward. So what happens now? Rachel took a deep breath. First, I'm not resuming the mortgage payments. That chapter is closed. Linda flinched but nodded. I'm willing to help you build a plan, Rachel continued. Budgeting, downsizing, maybe selling the house. But I won't carry the burden alone anymore. No more silent sacrifices. No more insults. George agreed. We'll work with you. It's time we stood on our own. Linda was quiet but said, we'll try. I'll try. It wasn't perfect. But it was a beginning. Something they hadn't had in a very long time. In the weeks that followed, Rachel helped them explore real estate options. Downsizing wasn't easy for Linda, but eventually they found a modest condo with lower costs and less maintenance. It's not our house, Linda had said wistfully. No, Rachel replied. But it could be your home. For the first time Linda cried, not in anger but in remorse. I'm sorry, Rachel. Truly. For all of it. Rachel took her mother's hand. I believe you. George was more engaged than ever, working on spreadsheets, making calls. The house sold quickly. The condo became a fresh start. On moving day they stood in the now empty living room. 30 years, Linda whispered. It's where you took your first steps. Rachel smiled gently. It's just a house, Mom. The memories come with us. Linda hugged her. Not a quick, polite hug but a real one. When they sat down later to eat Chinese takeout at the condo, George raised a glass. To new beginnings, he said. And to Rachel, who showed us the truth. Linda added, thank you. Rachel looked around the small, neat condo and felt something shift. This wasn't closure. It was the opening of something better. 6 months passed. Rachel's relationship with her parents wasn't perfect, but it was real. Respectful. Boundaried. They now called once a week instead of every day. Sunday dinners were once a month, not every weekend. Linda still struggled with control, but she made visible efforts. George had taken over the finances and was thriving in the role. He even bragged about their budget. Rachel had never felt lighter. Without the constant emotional toll, her career soared. She was promoted again. And in her personal life, she began dating James, a thoughtful attorney who respected her boundaries. James listened patiently one night as Rachel told the short version of her story. Your family's complicated, he said. Isn't everyone's? He smiled. True. But the way you stood up for yourself, that's rare. That's strong. Rachel thought about that. For years she believed strength meant sacrifice. But now she saw it differently. Strength was setting boundaries. Saying no. Rebuilding relationships from a place of self-worth instead of guilt. She didn't need to earn love anymore. She just needed to stand in her truth. And for the first time in her adult life she truly was. As fall leaves gathered outside her apartment window, Rachel sat at her desk writing in her journal. I am not responsible for fixing people who refuse to grow. I am responsible for protecting my peace. The mortgage, the silence, the confrontation, it had all led here. To healing. To freedom. To herself. Her story wasn't one of a perfect family or endless forgiveness. It was about choosing truth. And in doing so choosing herself. Moral lesson. True love includes boundaries. Sacrifice without respect breeds resentment. Sometimes the most loving act is choosing yourself. And allowing others to face the consequences of their choices. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the story please help us to like, comment and subscribe to the channel for more of this.